Well, it's good to see everybody again. This week, we move into some selected poems by the most influential and most prominent member of the symbolists, who is Charles Baudelaire. Lived in France and Paris, and his most famous work is Les Fleurs du Mal, which is the flowers of evil. This is my copy here. Of course, we have the poems and translation, right? If you remember from the period overview, one of the things about the works of the symbolists, they were often censored, and some of the poems that Charles Baudelaire wrote were censored, and believe it or not, he was jailed for some of his poetry, which today is really kind of a wow, he was thrown in jail for something that he wrote? Wow, but it's true. And one of the things that we'll see as we look into the works of Baudelaire is that he has some of the same themes that we looked at under Romanticism, such as death, right? We've seen that before. But now we're going to be looking at that in a different way. Oftentimes, we might see death being depicted with images of decay, also depravity. So we're picking up things and we're changing them. So the revolutions that we started in Romanticism are continuing, but they're morphing, they're changing. If you remember where we were with the Romantics not only changed the subject and language of poetry, but also the form. Interesting thing about Baudelaire is that he's using classical forms. In other words, he is interested in meter and rhyme, but he's changing the content and the subject matter. And then one of the things that he's really interested in portraying to the reader is what we could call the dark underbelly of humanity, as it was revealed in big cities. His work is sexually explicit, it's obscene, and what he's interested in doing is that he's showing that art can create beauty from the most non-poetic scene. So we're moving away from the landscapes, right, and the beautiful rolling river, and we're really changing that up, right? Depravity, decay, explicitness, obscenity. Things are changing. For the symbolists, key term, this is a French word, it's ennui. And what this deals with, it's that feeling that we have that's being beyond bored, right? Which we've all experienced that feeling, where you are past bored. And so what starts to happen is you start to generate apathy and weariness. Today, that's often I hear people say, I talk to my daughters or students like, how are you? And they'll say, meh, right? It's just that feeling of malaise, right? They just don't, that feeling. And it's often characterized by melancholia. And melancholia, right, it's gloomy. It's really a deep, deep sadness. So what Baudelaire and the other symbolists realized is that in this industrialized age, in these big cities, is that society was becoming stagnant. There wasn't that growth anymore. So they were exploring that. I know you're probably thinking, well, hey, Mr. K, what's the big deal about this? Could you read us an example? And this is from, again, his book, The Flowers of Evil. This is selections from one of his sonnets. You take to bed the whole world as your prize, you slut of sluts, by boredom brutalized. Wow, did he really just say, you slut of sluts? Yeah, really just did. Oh, Another example, and this is from a series of poems that Baudelaire did that dealt with what he terms spleen. And this is not when Baudelaire uses the term spleen, it's not in reference to the organ in the human body. It's when he uses this, it's in reference to those little episodes of depression and isolation that we all go through. And right, ennui and spleen can be connected, right? When you enter into those deep troughs, right, as we go through the waves and the peaks and the valleys, right, as you go through spleen, right, those periods of ennui, you can be all inside of there. So this is from one of his series on spleen. I am a graveyard that the moon abhors. Like guilty qualms, the worms burrow and nest thickly in bodies that I loved the best. Yes, or another one. My cat seeks out a litter on the stones, her mangy body turning without rest. An ancient poet's soul and monotones whines in the rainspouts like a chilblained ghost. So what we see here is we see a new type of art that's being generated, right? Something beautiful from a non-poetic scene. So I hope you enjoy the brief selections that we have from The Flowers of Evil with Charles Baudelaire. If you're offended by Baudelaire's work, I'm sure that Charles Baudelaire would be happy that you're offended, or if you think it's obscene, I'm sure that that's part of the whole experience here as well. So until we see each other again, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.